The TARDIS arrives on the coast of 17th century Cornwall, much to the astonishment of Polly and Ben. Pirates led by Captain Samuel Pike and his henchman Sheriff are searching for a hidden treasure, while a smuggling ring masterminded by the local squire is trying to offload contraband. The Doctor inadvertently learns from church warden Joseph Longfoot, who is subsequently murdered, a cryptic rhyme that holds the key to the treasure's whereabouts. He is then kidnapped. Although he escapes, the Doctor is eventually forced to tell Pike the rhyme's meaning. It refers to names on tombstones in the church crypt, and the treasure is uncovered. At this point, the militia arrives, summoned by Revenue Officer Josiah Blake. A fight ensues in which Pike and many of his men are killed and the rest taken prisoner. The Doctor and his companions, meanwhile, slip back to the TARDIS. Welcome, friends and companions. It's time to do a live stream. Yes, for a live stream. Yeah. I'm very enthusiastic to do live streams, and especially about Doctor Who. And you are invited, actually, to for as a guest to join the live streams in a panel to talk about Doctor Who, talk about the things we like, and also it's possible to invite me for your channel to contribute for your channel and to talk of things we are interested in. So yeah, I want to network and make friends and companions. So feel free to invite me also for your channel. I want to contribute also for that. So yeah, that's the reason I'm very enthusiastic and passionate about talking about the things about Doctor Who. So, sci-fi and fantasy fans meet on this channel for fun chats about their beloved books, movies, series, and franchises. We also talk about food and drinks, music, and sport, all sort of things. But a special place on this channel for Doctor Who. I have multiple names for this channel. My name, your host, Enigmatic Joker. But the channel's name has its own name, and it's regularly regenerating. But most of the time, the channel is called the Entertainment Channel, the working title for that, to make it very little bit. The channel is called Animated Nurture by my own name, but the work title is Run Entertainment Channel. Do you understand it? Yes, I know it's a little bit enigmatic, it's mysterious, but it's my name. That's the thing. Random, and I travel to time and space, also with the Doctor. So you need to subscribe to this channel to know what time the broadcast is actually. The reasoning behind the fact that I live stream on many different times is that I want to meet as much people as possible in different time zones, and I'm a little bit searching of what is the most uh, uh, trying probably when people will join these live streams. But I want to serve as much people as possible. So I do the live streams on many different times, and a little bit of it's a little bit of a search discovery, in fact, of when most people are available or want to join. It's a bit of a search, but I think I will probably do different times because yeah, if it's now much people or less people, uh, it's for you. So it makes no difference how many are joining actually. But it's a dream for me. So also to have an interactive channel. So it's a little bit yeah. I'm looking forward to meet you. It's a dream of me to have an active channel with panelists, with guests, and with people in the chat who are interacting with each other about the things, yeah, and especially Doctor Who. But at the moment, yeah, um, it's a dream, and hopefully it will come true. That in short term, and we'll have interactive live streams. Um, yeah, that's it. Actually, My dream is that we will be interactive on different times. Uh, so, okay. Um, so we are random because we broadcast on non-fixed times. Actually, that's what I was already saying. Do you need to subscribe to channel no time the broadcast is? And yeah, it's also possible to contact me. You can contact me via YouTube. You can put a comment on one of my videos, and you can contact me via Discord server. And we'll look what is possible. So Discord server is called Run an Entertainment Channel, tag Doctor Who, and you'll find me very quick because I bump the server regularly. So cheers, mate. Have lots of fun. This is your host, Enigmatic Joker. So today, yes, we have a first Doctor story. Yes. William Hartnell. This is called. The story is called The Smugglers. First, some general info. So, The Smugglers was the first serial of season 4 of Doctor Who. Strangely, it was the first story of season 4's broadcast schedule, but the last story of the season 3's production block. Like Robot and Terror of the Zygons after it, it was a story that was held over from one season to the next in order to give the production team a little bit of a cushion against pressures of production. Um, it was narratively notable for being Ben and Polly's first journey in the TARDIS and furthers the development of their characters as opposites to each other. While the War Machines had depicted Ben as sullen and Polly as a vibrant, the smugglers established Ben as a skeptic and Polly as a believer. In the same way as it takes Ben a significant time in the power of the Daleks to admit that the second Doctor is in fact the Doctor, here he takes the better part of episode one to believe that he's traveled back in time. At the same time, it is also showed the way in which the two characters could actively work together to solve problems. The story also contains an unusual amount of coarse violence, which resulted in the only surviving clips of the serial. The ABC took exceptions to a few scenes and edited them out, and then preserved those edits rather than broader episodes. So, although it is mostly missing, a tiny flavor of the production has been retained. Additionally, the fact that the production unusually featured actual locating filming in Cornwall attracted the enthusiasm of at least one amateur filmmaker. Footage exists of some of the location work, giving modern fans a further glimpse into the costuming and makeup of the serial. Currently, all four episodes are missing from the BBC archives. Despite the fact that The Smugglers was a ratings failure and is ill remembered by modern audiences, it was given a boost by BBC Wales team in 2011. It was elevated to the status of a loose sequel to The Curse of the Black Spot. That's 11 Doctor story Matt Smith and Amy Rory. Since it tells the story of how the Black Albatross, crewed by Avery's former mates, went looking for the gold and treasure that Avery was hauling in the fancy. So that is some general info about this story. Okay, we will now dive into the plot. Um, 4 episodes, 25 minutes each broadcast. I will dive now into every episode by episode. So, if you haven't watched this story yet, I highly recommend to do that. Otherwise, you can listen further. Decide for yourself. Episode 1. The Doctor is shocked and angry to discover Ben and Polly inside the TARDIS, as they innocently try to return a TARDIS key. Ben and Polly are confused and doubtful about the Doctor's stories of time travel and his lack of control of this machine. Dr. Barnes bars Ben from touching the controls and, on landing, shows them the scanner and tells them not to leave until he has run his checks. Bemused, they obey him. They are shocked to leave the TARDIS and find themselves in a cave adjacent to an ocean beach. The doctor says he cannot take them back to London, which Ben takes as refusal. Polly is excited about these events, but Ben is anxious to get back to his Navy barracks. They go along a path up the cliffs in search of a bus or train, but the doctor is worriedly amused at the prospect of convincing his new companions where and when they might be. Polly suspects that they may be in Cornwall. Ben spots a church at the top of the cliffs, and the doctor guesses they may have arrived sometime after the 16th century, but before the Victorian period. As they look around, a man with a flintlock pistol in his hand accosts the three travelers, mistaking Polly in her 1960s trouser suit for a boy. The doctor is able to convince him that they are innocent travelers and asks him to direct them to a place of shelter. He introduces himself as Joseph Longfoot, the churchwarden, yet he is still suspicious of them and asks if they know Avery or Pike. The doctor insists that he doesn't, and in order to gain more trust, resets the churchwarden's dislocated finger. The grateful man directs them to an inn and warns the three to keep to themselves there, and also entrusts the doctor with a riddle. This is that man's secret key, Ringwood, Smallbeer, Gurney. The doctor is confused, but as the storm is coming on, the travelers depart. Ben and Polly want to go back to the TARDIS, but are precluded by the high tides. George Warden retires inside. A large, muscular sailor emerges from behind a tombstone and goes inside the church. Jacob Cooper, landlord of the inn, sends stableboy Tom to give a message to the church warden regarding a delivery expected soon. Soon the doctor and friends, soaked from the rain, arrive at the inn to an unfriendly, suspicious welcome from Cooper. They are told that the inn is full, but when they mention Longfoot, Jacob becomes more accommodating. A drunken Longfoot is confronted by a sailor named Cherub, who calls the church warden an old shipmate of the Black Albatross. Cherub has come for knowledge of Captain Avery's gold. Sobered, Longfoot refuses to give up knowledge of the gold. Cherub asks who the old man and his two lads, Ben and Polly, were. Suspicious they may be involved in some way. Cherub kills Longfoot during their confrontation and decides to pursue the three travelers. Tom reports back to Cooper about Longfoot's death and is sent out to fetch the squire. Cherub, now with three sailors, finds the doctor and his companions at the inn and threatens them, demanding more information. Cherub grabs the doctor and Ben is knocked out after attempting to intervene. The men kidnap the doctor and haul him into a cart. Polly calls for Cooper, who attempts to calm Polly and says the squire will sort everything out. Though this doesn't stop Polly from worrying about the doctor. The squire arrives, but instead of helping Polly find the doctor, he questions the strangers about their origins and demands information. Caleb and the cart arrive at the coast, where the doctors put on a small rowboat and rowed out to sea. When Ben comes to, he and Polly refuse to give any information as to their origins. The squire, suspecting them to be guilty of the murder of Longfoot, arrests them. Cherub and the doctor arrive on the Black Albatross, where they are led into the captain's quarters. The captain introduces himself as Captain Pike. When Cherub says the doctor will not speak, Pike slams his hook on the table and says he will be forced to tell what he knows. End of episode 1. Episode 2. Pike reveals that Longfoot, Cherub, and himself were all shipmates under the now deceased Captain Avery. He accuses Longfoot of stealing Avery's gold, stating that the plunder rightfully belongs to the trio. Pike believes that the Doctor is somehow embroiled in the plot, and Tirep begs Pike to allow him to torture the Doctor. Ben and Polly find themselves in the village goal, guarded by Tom. Ben is distraught, still eager to report back to his ship in the 1960s, whilst Polly seems caught up in the adventure until she sees a rat. They are unable to convince Tom that there are other strangers in town. Tirop and the settlers were unseen by other in patrons. And it was that it was they who killed Longfoot. So Polly hits up an idea of exploiting the superstitions of the locals to try to escape. Jacob Cooper looks up the inn, heads to the harbor, and rows out towards the Black Albatross. The Doctor appeals to Pike as gentleman and bargains to be treated more civilly. He states that if he helps them, he should receive a share of the treasure. After they toast over wine, Jamaica enters to inform Pike about the rowboat approaching. The Doctor is brought to the gallery for food and wine, whilst Tirop is sent to meet the visitor. Ben and Polly make a straw doll, and Polly, or Paul, as Ben refers to her, pretends to be in trance. The couple share Tom into thinking that the Doctor is a warlock and that they are apprentices. Ben then convinces Tom that Polly has been possessed by the Doctor and has made a voodoo doll that controls Tom, and that the only way to free him from this jeopardy is to release them from prison. Ben and Polly decide to investigate the church for any evidence regarding Longfoot's death. Cooper is brought before the captain to discuss business, having bribed Cherub. Cooper reveals that he, Longfoot, and the squire are smugglers. Pike, in turn, threatens Cooper by revealing his true name, and that he and his men killed the church warden. Cooper trembles at being before Pike. Pike and Cherub leave to find the squire, preferring to do business directly with him, suspecting that it may be a trap. Doctor is brought back. He and Cooper are guarded by Jamaica. Ben and Polly venture in the church crypt and try to work out the circumstances of Longfoot's murder, to no avail. As they give up and decide to find the TARDIS, one of the tombs opens to reveal a secret passage, and they hide as cloaked man emerges. Ben knocks him out and ties him up. Polly decides this may be the murderer and goes to find the squire to show him and prove their innocence. Soon the bound man tells Ben he is Josiah Blake, the king's revenue officer. The passageway is further evidence against the church warden and the smugglers whom Blake is trying to arrest. Ben is pleased to hear the passage leads to the beach, at least a protesting Blake to investigate. Ike and Sheriff visit the squire, planning to get information about the smugglers' stash. The squire unwittingly reveals the church to be a relay point, but before they can talk further, Polly is dragged in by a manservant and is horrified when she recognizes Syrup. Cooper, regretting his decision, tells the Doctor what has happened to his friends and the danger the village is in from Pike and his men. The Doctor plans to escape, but when asked how he plans to do so, the Doctor loudly asks Cooper if he wants to play cards. Meanwhile, the squire and his friends have heard Polly's story, but Pike has twisted the story in his favor. The only thing Polly's story has done is confirm they were the last people to see Longfoot alive, further aiding the story of their guilt. The man decides to visit the crypt to see who Ben has captured, suspecting it might be a revenue officer. Ben has returned after discovering that the passage leads back to where the TARDIS is, but his joy is cut short as the squire, with Pike and Sheriff, arrives gun in hand, along with the prisoner, Polly, who has been bound and gagged. End of episode 2. Episode 3. Ben recognizes Stirrup as well, but Pike dismisses his accusations. Blake calls out and is released after the three villains decide he is not an immediate threat and, in fact, can be used to their advantage. Blake is convinced by them to take Ben and Polly into custody as suspected smugglers. On the ship, the doctor tells Cooper's fortune using playing cards, watched by a curious Jamaica. Jamaica asks for his fortune to be told, and Cooper uses the distraction to knock him out. The doctor and Cooper decide to go to the squire to tell him of the innocence of Ben and Polly and the presence of Pike. Outside in the graveyard, Pike and Tirp flatter the squire into revealing a tomb that contains one of the smuggler's stashes of booty. He and Pike arrange to meet the next night, and fires will be lit for a signal. Tirp overhears and heads off on his own. Pike and Squire go off to discuss payment. Blake has forced Ben and Polly to the stables at the inn where, to their surprise, he removes Polly's ropes and gag, saying he would rather trust her word than the Squire's. Blake explains that he suspects the Squire, but has no proof against him, and hopes to gather enough men to prevent what he believes will be a transaction in the next night or two. The doctor meets up with them, to the huge relief of Ben and Polly, but Cooper is known to Blake. Upon seeing Blake, Cooper suspects he has been lured into a trap by the doctor, at least, but is pursued by Blake. Pike is enraged at Jamaica for the escape of the doctor and Cooper, and Jamaica tells him they went to see the squire. Pike decides to move the plan ahead on and to do it during the daytime so as to surprise the squire. One group will collect the smuggler's stash, while he and Syrup will hunt for Avery's gold. Pike kills Jamaica for his foolishness, but finds that Syrup seems to have left the ship. So, when the doctor tells Blake about Pike's plans and surmises that he will also sack and burn the village, Blake departs to gather men and arms. Doctor is glad to hear of the passage to the TARDIS from the church crypt, but insists that they stay to try to prevent the destruction of the village. Knowing the clue to Avery's gold, the doctor leads his friends back to the church, hoping to locate the treasure as a bargaining chip. As Tom watches them go, Cherub emerges from hiding and threatens him to tell where they are heading. The squire is horrified to hear from Cooper about his playing into Pike's hands, but on hearing of Avery's gold, they decide to find it themselves. Knowing that Pike and his men will head for the stash, they aim to lay a trap for them by placing armed men on the route that the squire handed to Pike. They ride off towards the church to seek the gold. The doctor, Ben, and Polly are searching the graveyard for clues, but eventually realize the riddle reveals names on two tombstones, and they head to the crypt. Ben shows them the secret passageway entrance. Then they find markers for Ringwood, Smallbeer, and Gurney, three names from the Rhine. The doctor thinks it would be more helpful if there were four names. So the squire and Cooper arrive to discover the church door ajar and hope that it's the doctor rather than Pike and his men. The doctor is about to reveal the answer to the riddle, but Cooper bursts in and threatens violence. The squire bristles and at this and wants to work with the doctor. As the two argue, Cherub enters secretly and his knife flies through the air and meets Cooper's back, while a shot from his pistol rings out as Polly screams. End of episode 3. Episode 4. The squire has been wounded by Sharp's shot, as Sharp demands the secret of Avery's gold. Polly insists on helping the squire, but while Cherub seems to agree, he grabs her and holds his pistol to her head, threatening to shoot unless the doctor shares the riddle. Meanwhile, Blake is still riding towards the militia outpost. The doctor, playing for time, reveals the rhyme told to him by Longfoot. Cherub recognizes the four names as members of every crew. He reveals the fourth name to be Dead Man. The squire recalls every curse and regrets having pursued the treasure. Pike and his men land in force, and Pike sends one man to find Cherub. Pike goes to church, his men following, and opens the sarcophagus containing the silks, spices, and rum of the smuggler's stash. His men begin hauling the goods to the shore as Pike enters the church. Blake has finally collected his force, and they are on the way back to the village. Pike finds Sheriff holding the doctor and friends along with the squire and confronts him about deserting the ship. Sheriff says he did all this for the captain, which Pike finds dubious. Sheriff raises his gun to Pike, but it is quickly parried, and the two duel with cutlasses. Outside, the crew are becoming ill-ordered and start helping themselves to rum. The crewman, Gaptooth, tries to restore order. He sends two crew members back to the shore for their behavior. Using the fight as a distraction, the doctor sends Ben and Polly down the secret passage while he waits for Blake. Pike is eventually victorious and runs Sheriff through. It turns to the doctor, who offers Pike a new agreement to reveal where the gold is. Meanwhile, two crew members on the beach find the cave, the TARDIS, and the entrance to a tunnel. The doctor offers to take no treasure so long as the village is spared and the squire is moved. Pike says he must keep his crew happy and resists. The squire argues that Pike seems to find it difficult to keep control of his crew and goads him into proving their obedience and his command. In the tunnel, almost as the TARDIS, Polly injures her foot but insists that Ben return to fetch the doctor. Blake and his men sight the church and divide into two groups. One will head to the church, the other will take the passage from the beach to the crypt. The doctor finds the fourth name on a tombstone, and Pike is incredulous, as all four men died at sea. Names, says the doctor, were changed by church warden, and the flagstone is at the intersection of the four names. Pike removes the slab and, reaching deep inside, discovers the treasure. As he does so, gunshots are heard outside. The pirates, drunk with rum, are easily overtaken by Blake's men, while others retreat into the church. Polly is attacked by the two sailors and tries to escape back into the tunnel. She is caught, but Ben hears what's going on and is able to overtake one of them as the sailor approaches. He finds Polly and fights the second man as Blake's men arrive. Blake shoots the sailor, killing him. As his men flood the tunnel, Ben follows Blake, whilst Polly returns to the TARDIS. There is a pandemonium in the crypt as Blake's men fight the pirates. Pike grasps at the treasure that threatens the doctor for leading him into a trap. Ben, Blake, and his men arrive and take to the fight. Ben tries to take the doctor away, but insists on helping the squire. The squire has enough strength to help fend off Pike's hook, as Blake fires the fatal shot, ending Pike. Ben and the doctor slip away whilst the squire is aided by Blake. He regrets never being able to thank the doctor. Finding Polly, the three enter the TARDIS and leave. Suddenly, the interior of the ship is freezing cold, and the doctor announces they have arrived at the coldest place in the world. And that, my friends, is the end of this four episode story, The Smugglers. I will name some cast members. Doctor Who is played by William Hartnell. Ben Jackson is played by Michael Crace. Polly is played by Anneke Wales. George Warden Joseph Longfoot is played by Terence de Marnay. Sheriff is played by George A. Cooper. Jacob Cooper is played by David Blake Kelly. Tom is played by Mike Lucas. Squire Edward is played by Paul Whitson Jones. The Spaniard is played by Derek Ware. The Captain Samuel Pike is played by Michael Godfrey. Jamaica is played by Elroy Josephs. Josiah Blake is played by John Ringen, and Gaptooth is played by Jack Blythe. Some world building in dealing with food and beverages. Ben drinks some beer, and Doctor reviews brandy when in the presence of his new companions. As soon as he's having a private conversation with Pike, he eagerly accepts what he assesses a particular fine Madeira. Another thing is that the smugglers smuggle rum, silks, tobacco, and brandy. And third thing is that the doctor mentions Victorian restoration. Another thing is that in world building about individuals, Ben tells the doctor that he has enough of home movies. Second thing is that Pike compares Avery to the pirate Morgan. Third thing is that Blake is the king's revenue officer. Another thing is that Ben tells Polly to aid a butchers at one of the graves. Another thing in individuals that Ben bets doctor they have landed in Fitzroy Square. Another thing in individuals is that Syrup mentions David Jones. And last thing is that manservant's name is Birch. World building popular culture. Polly lays down some clear ground rules with Ben saying that she has no intention of playing what's his name, Watson to Ben's Sherlock Holmes. Okay, some story notes. As you had noticed, the end of the story leads into the next and 10th planet. There's less story on screen after less story in the William Hartnell era. And the 10th planets. So this story leads into the next 10 planets. And important notes that's for you. That is to think about is that the 2006 short story Three Pets retcons this, allowing further stories featuring Ben and Polly as companions of the first Doctor to be told prior to the Doctor's regeneration. It gives breathing space to such stories depicting or referencing these extended adventures, such as Food for Thought, 10 Little Aliens, 5 Card Draw, and Smoke and Mirrors. So it's important. That leads me to this thing is that in Doctor Who, it's for you to decide what is canon and non-canon. Every fan of the Doctor Who is free to decide for him or herself what is canon and what is non-canon. So that's for you to decide. Another thing is that the 2017 the Campaign Chronicles released the Bonfires of the Vanities as the Doctors arriving at Antarctica only for the Daleks to attempt to prevent the Doctor's regeneration by having them appear at 1950s Lewis instead, allowing for further adventures for the first Doctor, Ben and Polly. Also a thing. For decide for yourself. Another thing is that the title sequence film is used to represent the space-time vortex as seen on the TARDIS scanner screen in episode 1, with the story title, writer's credit, and episode number captions overlaid in black on the swirling patterns. What I'm saying is that no episode of this 4-part story exists in the BBC archives, so telesnaps for all 4 episodes survive. Another thing is that this is the only televised Doctor Who story to have no incidental music whatsoever. Another thing is that the second of 6 Doctor Who series to be written by Brian Hayles and is last not to feature the Ice Warriors. Another thing is that Polly is the only female character in the story. Annika Wills pointed this out in the DVD commentary of the War Machines and remarked that she was rather annoyed about it. This occurs again in the Moon Base, after which the next story to have a situation like this was the 3rd Doctor story, The Mutants, in which Jo Grant is the only female character. Other things that Annika Wills named this as her and Michael Cray's favorite story, partly thanks to its extended location shooting in Cornwall. She said it was a super story as she got to wear breeches. Another thing is that Michael Grace fell through a trapdoor which had not been properly secured, but fortunately suffered only a minor injury to his right shoulder. Another thing is that as a result of splitting the TARDIS apart from the massacre, a major refit was initiated in response to the show's ever-increasing requirements for locating filming away from the confines of the studio. Locating filming had now become a commonplace and meant that transporting the prop in its complete form was difficult, knowing that it would be required at the bottom of a cliff on the Cornwall coast for this story. The refit would ensure that the prop could now be disassembled and flat packed for transportation. This then resulted in changing the whole geometry of the prop, making it no longer a square in plain view, uh, but slightly rectangular. Another knock-on effect to this was the roof was remade slightly wider, overhanging at the front and rear, while it underhung on the two sides and only just balanced on the top of the structure. A prop height also needed to be cut down during locating filming for the smugglers, as it was too high to fit in the cave chosen for its landing sequence. Um, Another thing is that Julie Smith recalled William Hartnell was remarkable. As a director, you work out actors' moves before going into rehearsal in order to get a variety of shots. And I remember asking William Hartnell to cross to the TARDIS, press a particular button, and he went raving mad. I can't. If I do that, this will happen to the TARDIS, and that will happen to the TARDIS. And they gave me a quarter of an hour dissertation of why he couldn't press that button. I stood there very young and very nervous and took his broadside. This broadside about the insanity of woman drivers almost. It was obviously so real to him. He'd committed himself to the character and acquainted himself with all the machinery, which is in those days was very much simpler than it is now. That's what she recalled, Julia Smith. So, what a dedicated actor, William Hartnell. Yeah, what a dedicated actor, William Hartnell. First Doctor, he laid the foundation. So, part of the reason Julia Smith was chosen to direct was her familiarity with the Cornish coast. There are things that several members of the cast and crew suffered from seasickness in that story. According to Derek Ware, in the original script, the Spaniard was a speaking part, but his lines were cut before filming. Another thing that Jamaica was already named Crow. The production in Cornwall was assisted by numerous local extras, notably members of the Sea Cadets. Another thing is that it was during production of the series that William Hartnell met with Ines Lloyd to discuss his future with the series. It was mutually but reluctantly on Hartnell's part, decides that Hartnell should leave the role. Another thing is that Terry Walsh later revealed that in order to increase the number of pirates fighting in the graveyard, extras and stuntmen would crawl from behind the gravestone after being killed, only to switch hats and wigs and rejoin the battle as a new character. Another thing is that this is the first season opener directed by a woman. It would be followed by Horror of Fang Rock, that is a Fourth Doctor story with Tom Baker and companion Leela. Crystal Valva, that's with the Fifth Doctor. And the Magician's Apprentice, which is familiar. That's a 12th Doctor story with Peter Capaldi and Clara, and also with Missy in it. Another thing is that this was the final serial to have costumes designed by Daphne Dare, who had worked on the show since the Daleks, the second story in season 1 of William Hartnell. Another thing is that the horses were supplied by the Rose Hill School of Riding. About Derek Ware doubled for John Ringman for scenes where Blake rode on a horseback. And during recording, when Blake is thrown from a horse, Ware performed a stunt fall and landed in some nearby dung. Oh. Yeah. Gordon Craig doubled for William Hartnell in some pickup shots when the star had returned to London. And the last story note is that extras Terry Hayes and Ted Rogers were sea cadets in real life. And two things in continuity. Upon finding he has been unwittingly joined by Ben and Polly, the doctor mused to himself, "Oh dear, all this distraction. And I really thought I was going to be alone again." End quote. He previously thought he would be without companions after Stephen Taylor briefly left him at the conclusion of the TV story The Massacre, and had considered returning to his own planet. On that occasion, his expectations of solitude were similarly cut short by the unbidden arrival of Dodo Shapley aboard the TARDIS and Stephen's return shortly thereafter. And second thing is that the Doctor would eventually meet Captain Avery in person in his 11th incarnation, Matt Smith. That is in the TV story The Curse of the Black Spot. So, and that, my friends and companions, is the end of the story, The Smugglers. Okay, some commercial. Yeah. So, Sci-Fi Fantasy fans and all sort of fans meet on this channel for fun chats about their beloved books, movies, series, and franchises. We also talk about food and drinks, music and sport, and a special place on this channel for Doctor Who. We are random because we will discuss everything that involves entertainment, including movies and series, books and music. Random because we'll broadcast on non-fixed time, actually midnight for times. You need to subscribe to this channel to know what time the broadcast is. Random also because we have no guests or different guests. It depends what you join me in a live stream or panel. If you want to join me in a live stream or panel, feel free to contact me via YouTube. You can put a comment on one of the videos and you can meet me on Discord server and we look what is possible. And it's also possible to invite me for your channel. I'm also available to contribute to your channel for our live stream or panel to talk about things we are interested in. So feel free also to invite me for your channel. I want to meet you and want to make friends. Yes. So the Discord server, when you can contact me, is Random Entertainment Channel, Tech Doctor Who. So this Discord server is active before, during, and after the live streams. So cheers, man. Have lots of fun. This is your host, Enigmatic Joker. So I'm looking forward to meet you. Have a nice day, everyone. Have a nice weekend. Bye bye. Bye bye.